So once you leave Hawaii, do you ever come back? Especially as someone who's local, born and raised here. A recent UHERO blog post talked about this and had some very interesting findings. And so I want to share what those findings were and just provide some commentary, especially as someone who was born and raised here and then went away to the mainland and then came back. And while it's nice to have that data and to interpret it creatively, I'm not so sure I agree with their ultimate conclusions. Because while I think the set of data is very interesting, I think that it should be used lightly, kind of like furikake on your rice, you know, just a little bit sprinkle. You don't want to dump too much or half the bottle, because if not, you know, your mom will get mad.
Hello from Hawaii.
Now, there are a few conclusions and claims that the author makes, but the most significant one to me is that there are more people moving into Hawaii, local-born people moving into Hawaii than are leaving, particularly in the 25 to 44 age range. And because the numbers seem to indicate this, this goes counter to this narrative that we have that, oh, we're suffering from brain drain and all the young and brightest are leaving Hawaii. In other words, see? Get plenty of people coming back to Hawaii. Bah, no need to worry. To support this notion that young people are moving back, Civil Beat interviewed this young couple who both local, born and raised here, went to the mainland for college, worked, and then came back to Hawaii, and then went back up to Seattle, and then ultimately moved back to Hawaii this year. And before addressing the major point from the report, I just wanted to sort of talk about this example. Right? And I think it's wonderful that there are examples like this couple who were able to move back to Hawaii and to support themselves. But I think the real reason they were able to do that is because they both have remote jobs, both probably high-paying jobs that they were able to secure in their time on the mainland. So it allowed them to move back. I mean, it's not like they moved back to Hawaii and worked for a local company. And so their income and their working conditions are somewhat outliers to what a local experience would be. And so from their example, are we to conclude that the only way that people in this age range are able to move back to Hawaii is because they have remote work opportunities in tech? Because I'd be curious to know what percentage of those moving back to Hawaii who were local, born and raised, are working for local companies versus out-of-state companies through remote. And I think that's actually very important to consider, particularly for this 25 to 44 age range, if we're saying that this group is coming back to offset the overall out-migration of locals in Hawaii. And I think from a bigger economic standpoint, what does that say about our local economy if that's the only way that these people are able to move back home? I mean, in essence, we're saying, yeah, we know my jobs, but if you like work somewhere else and they offer remote, yeah, come back home. Hey, and don't forget to pay Hawaii income tax. Just because you work for a company in Washington doesn't mean you get no income tax. But going back to that article, there's this claim that there are enough people in this 25 to 44 age group that are coming back to Hawaii so that we don't have to worry so much about the future economy, not just with having workers, but also that tax base and people to support the silver tsunami coming. In 2023, 12,100 Hawaii-born individuals moved back to Hawaii, while 6,400 local-born left the islands. And so if we look at those numbers, it looks very encouraging that, hey, we got 12,000 locals to come back to Hawaii. But there are a couple of considerations that I think need to go more, especially when we're going to talk about this particular age group, which I happen to be in. The first thing is that 25 to 44 in age is a huge range. A lot is going on in a person's life. People are finding their careers, they're starting their careers, they're single, married, divorced, they get no kids, they get too many kids. Their own parents may still be working, or they may be taking care of their parents. So there's a spectrum of things going on in these people's lives in particular. And so I think that because of that, because of the variety of things that are happening, I think that this group should be at least divided in half. Because a 25-year-old is very different from someone who's 40 years old. Speaking for myself, when I moved back to Hawaii in my late 20s, I would have fallen into this category. Not married, no kids, that would have been me. But I was fortunate that I was able to move back when I did. In my late 20s, I had less obligations. If I were to move back now with a wife and 2 kids and the middle of my career, that move would be a lot harder. I mean, I'm sure that it happens where people who have moved away, have families on the mainland, and decide to move their kids and everything to Hawaii. I'm sure that happens, but I think in reality, it's probably more common the other way around, where a family who local born and raised will actually leave. And frankly, at that point, it might be easier and cheaper if the grandparents just sell here and move to the mainland with their kids. And so I get it when it comes to the data. It's really interesting to look at the numbers a lot closer and to make certain interpretations. I mean, I think that's the fun part of statistics. But I don't think we can pat ourselves on the back here. The famous Apple evangelist and public speaker Guy Kawasaki, who local boy, born and raised here, went to Iolani, and then ultimately he went to Stanford. He says that instead of asking why, we should be asking how. And so I want to take that and sort of apply it here. When we look at those 12,100 locals who moved away and came back, yes, I do want to ask, why did they come back? But I think we should be asking more so, how? How are they able to afford here? How are they going to find work? How are they going to get their housing? And to me, this is significant. In the example of the couple who moved back, there was no real why given. I can only assume it's to be with family. But it's the how they were able to do it. Well, they had remote jobs. Maybe they got family help to afford a place to live here. And I think it's important to understand this, because without that piece, we just look at these numbers and we think, oh, things aren't as bad. In looking at the population data since 2010, 9 out of those years, we saw a net migration loss of locals who were born and raised here, leaving the islands. Yet in 2012, 2021, 2022, and 2023, did we only see a net positive of locals moving back? So my question is, what's going on? Is it remote work? Is it the political climate? Are there effects of the pandemic that are allowing people to come back? And when I look at my own life as to the why and the how, it's pretty simple. I moved back because I wanted to spend time with my parents. I didn't come back because Hawaii was so affordable. I didn't come back because there were great job opportunities. There wasn't even remote work back then. I came back because I wanted to spend time with my family. And I knew that when I got here, I would just figure it out. As to the how, I lived with my parents, so I saved money there. For years, I did not go out and buy a new car. I didn't go out to eat. I didn't buy anything fancy for myself. I got lucky with finding a job here locally. I got lucky with finding a place to buy when I did, but I budgeted like crazy. And that was the way I was able to do it. That is my how. And I'd love to know how those 12,100 individuals are able to do it too, wouldn't you? So thanks for watching, and aloha.